You are now listening to the Prince Bailey Arena broadcast show.
Yes, people, welcome to the Prince Bailey Arena, where it's myself, Kishan Prince, and Ryan Bailey, where we go straight into this fantastic episode with Faheem, who is an agent since 2016, who worked with players and clubs globally all over. He's a cancer fighter and also a co-founder of CSM Foundation, which is now a football charity bringing people together in all communities with football. And he is also the co-founder of ASE Agency, who's also managed great players from the top flight football all the way down. So in this episode, we ask him many questions. Tune in, make sure you like, subscribe, and let's go.
And um, like you said, there's so much going on with them and themselves. But if I am a player, like for example, I'm playing Hackney Wick, for example.
Mhm.
I'm 16, I'm playing first team football. I message you and I say I need an agent. I'm playing step six football. Like I say, you're one of the guys. You won't turn them away if you've got time. You'd advise them. But if we was to sign a deal, how would that go for those that are not privy to those type of deals or how a contract goes with an agent?
To sign with an agent, you mean?
So, example, I'll give you. So, play a scenario out. My name is Alexandro. I'm
Mhm.
playing Clapham United, step six.
Yep.
I'm playing first team. I'm 16. I'm still in school.
Mhm.
Um, I'm playing first team football. I would like
Mhm.
an agent. Where do I go from here?
Okay. All right. Well, the first things first. Under the new rules, you can't sign with an agent at 16.
Okay.
Yeah. So that rule has changed. So basically now, because you can sort of sign a pro contract here at 17 in the UK. So
What age
basically
can you sign with an agent, Faheem?
um you can sign basically 6 months before you're eligible for a pro contract. You can sign with
Mm-hmm.
an agent. Yeah, so I mean, look, I'll always advise players on what they can do and the right approach to take.
Mm-hmm.
I think at 16, um, as much as it's important to have guidance, um, is the main thing is to focus on playing and developing. I think if you're playing at that level at 16, um, you really need to be looking at, well, what can I do to squeeze the most out of my talent? Whether that's extra training and all those types of things. And again, as an agent, I would be able to advise on that sort of thing. But like I said, at 16, you're looking to wait a few months before you could actually sign with an agent. Anyway, once you're in a position, once you're at an age where you can sign,
Mm-hmm.
um, look, there's like I said, there's is lots of things that are involved when you're playing football these days. So I think at that stage, you're just looking to really um, agree a rep contract where you agree to represent a player. For me, the most important thing in that agreement is what the player can expect from me, and that he clearly understands that, and what I expect from the player. Uh, and again, there needs to be a really clear understanding there. And then obviously you have to agree on a number, which is the commission and all of that kind of stuff as well. But I think, look, it's like I said, essentially what we're talking about is a relationship that can develop and maybe stay with you for 20 years, depending on how long you play, right?
Mm.
So it has to be something that you can be on the same page on, like-minded thinking, and a lot of that you can tell from when you start talking about the rep contracts and stuff like that, and even before then, to be fair. But yeah, so for me, at that age, um, or once you're eligible to sign with an agent, rather, excuse me, it's about really understanding what you can expect from each other and having that clearly written down, so there's no confusion, and then obviously agreeing on a commission as well.
Okay. It makes sense. And actually leading to that, let's talk about players' unrealistic expectations from
Yeah.
agents. Yeah, they're thinking agents, and you could probably give us a few stories. I know you got some funny ones, or even parents, you know, just killing it for kids, and even having this I don't know, this mindset about the kids that they just star them and then they expect the agent to do sort of wonders.
Yeah.
What sort of the experiences that you had with players being unrealistic, and how would you go about, you because you are real well known in terms of the game. If people you don't know, Faheem knows a lot of the big boys in the UK and overseas, and I'm telling you now, there's a way that you can do stuff to piss off agents, basically. So yeah, you can just give us a little background and how could players properly advise?
Um, I think with some players, you're. I think, look, in all walks of life, it is you have kind of sometimes you can have unrealistic expectations. I think the problem with football, particularly here in the UK, is that it's a very popular sport. So there are so many uh, kids going for the same spot as you are.
Mm.
You know, I'll give you an example. Just in the women's game, just going back a few years, I mean, it's developing quite nicely now with the popularity of the international game and things like that. But just a few years ago, um, I was I was aware of a player who lived uh, within London, but because there isn't enough teams with the growing popularity of the women's game, she would have to travel. Uh, I think about 2 hours. So she would work full time job, and then twice a week she would drive up 2 hours for training and drive back 2 hours after training. The next day getting up for work as well, and then she'd have a game at the weekend, or there might be a game in the week, and she would have to take that. And the men's game is no different. So no matter what uh, football you're looking at, is very very competitive. I think what you have to understand is these kind of rules. Um, they're not just specific to football. If, for example, you have been, say, at a Premier League Cat One academy, and you get released, and have been sort of out of, let's say, competitive level of football for 2 years, you come to me as an agent and say, right, give me some trials somewhere. I was at I don't know, Arsenal or Tottenham. The first question is, well, what have you been doing for the last 2 years? And that sounds harsh, but if you go to any other industry, it's no different. When you put in a CV in any industry, the first experience that they read about is your most recent experience,
Mm-hmm.
and then they kind of work back from there. If they can find you tick all the boxes in the most recent experience, they're not going to look too far back. So clubs want to know, well, okay, fine, you were at Cat One Academy, but where have you been for 2 years?
Exactly.
And they're so focused on the fact that where I was, that they forget that I need to play football to continue the development, and for them to be seen by, um, some really, really good scouts that we have in this country, and they need to play football so these guys can assess them, and then go back to the clubs and say, look, there's a player maybe slipped through the cracks. I think we should have a look at him. But if you're not playing, uh, a 4 minute highlight reel on YouTube, it's not going to do the trick.
Wow. This see what you just said there. That is probably 90 to 95% of the problem with a lot of the UK players, especially when they fall from that sort of grace. I believe it's down to that humility to say, why should I go, if I played at this level. There's one kid, I see him, he had the same team profile of the club that he was released from like 2 or 1 season ago. I'm like, big fella, you doggone, they done left with you time. You know what I mean? but he was still using that as his way of, let me attract attention. And when you speak to him in terms of like where you at now, like nothing big. He was trying to just do showcase teams, trying to get back into the system. And he's 18, 19, instead of him actually going down to non-league and playing. And I think that's probably the big problem as
Yeah.
well, is that a lot of the boys who do get released out of academy football, they want to either try and use that to stay at that same level or get back at that same level, when they just don't want to go back down to play any football.
But
Yeah.
can I add something and say, like, I would even say like bad habits. So there was a kid. I went to a game and I saw this kid. Like they had a showcase game that was lined up to play maybe in 20 minutes or an hour. There was a kid watching. Someone approached me and said, "Oh, that boy over there was released from Brighton." When I went over there, the boy was like a show of his former self. I was like, "Oh, when did he get released?" And I asked him, "When did you get released?" He didn't even want to look at me in my face. I think he got released the day before. And he had a showcase game to play, and there were scouts there, but he didn't want to play. I was like, "Why don't you want to play?" He was like, "Oh, I'm just not in the mood." Like, I was like, "Mate, you got to play. Like, you got to get back on that horse and play." Anyway, cut a long story short, I think he did play. Spoke to the parent, got him on side. Obviously, like you said, Faheem, they got to keep playing to get the experience wherever it is. They got to keep playing and gain leads. He played a game. No, I set him up with a showcase team. They played a Cat One Academy. I asked the coach how he got on. He was like, "Oh, he wasn't really driving. He wasn't really playing well." But the one thing that annoyed me, right, is that like when we moved away from the dome to play on the grass, I went to put him on and he didn't have his shin pads.
Oh my
He
God.
Wow.
left his shin pads in the dome. So I think that little thing, that little thing, I was like, I can't call him again because his head's not in the game.
Mm.
So I think when you get released from wherever it is, man, it's just you got to get back on that horse. You can have your down a day or two, but you just got to get to work.
Yeah, I think, look, mentally, it's a really big challenge for young people to deal with rejection. If you've
Mm,
been at a club for 6 or 7 years,
mm,
mm, and then suddenly they say, "No, actually, we're going to let you go," it's tough. We've all had rejection in some
mm,
form or other in life, and it's hard to take. And at a young age, what we have to look at, are we working with these players? Are we looking at their kind of mental stability, their mental strength?
mm,
Uh, you know, a lot of people talk about having the drive to succeed and things like that. Well, okay, that can be something that um, can come from within, but we also need to kind of learn how to hear the word no and how
mm,
to react to it.
mm,
Some people can be consumed by it. Some people can get annoyed and angry about it. But look, one of the prime examples of players that got released and were determined to continue playing, Connor Cody.
mm,
We don't need to go back that many years. Connor Cody was at Liverpool, um, played a lot of games. I followed him when he was a youngster at Liverpool. He played in game. It wasn't like he wasn't playing games there. He was playing regularly. And when he gets released, um, he drops right down the leagues with, and then once he's with Wolves, he's playing again. He's dropped right down, and he's worked all his sort of career back up the ladder, and captain that club in the Premier League.
mm,
Yeah.
Now
Yeah.
he's probably got a lot of support and help, and a lot of people he trusts around him that giving him that kind of support to kind of drive on as well,
mm,
and also that drive to succeed, that drive to kind of prove people wrong that actually I can play at this level. And
mm,
he's played the Premier League for many years,
mm,
not just as a bit part player, but as a captain. So, look, I think with young players, you have to look at the kind of the world is very different for a 15, 16-year-old now than what it was for me. I don't know how many years back, but quite a few years back when I was that age. So there's a completely different approach to guiding these young players and understanding, the level of support they need in order to make sure that they can deal with all these things that they're going to experience in life and react to them in a positive way, so that they can continue their development and it doesn't consume them and hold them back in any way.
100%. I think leading on to that one, actually, I have another question as well. Is what are the current options for UK players now wanting to go and play overseas now? Because I know a lot of boys, as you know, they want to
Yeah.
go overseas and play, but with the rule changes, with the Brexit and everything, how would you advise a player in terms of the rules? Like, for example, even the visa, if they want to go and play in Spain or whatever. If you do know, that'd be great. And yeah, just kind of that way forward, because I know there's a lot of guys playing National League and even certain professional ramming that could probably play League 3 or League 4 in certain countries, but obviously with the rules change, what kind of avenue can they take to go over there?
Yeah, I think it's obviously become more difficult now. I think what we're basing it goes back to that availability and the popularity of the game, right? What we're saying is a few years ago when young players were hungry for first team football, um, tried to make it in the adult game, and if they weren't getting here, there was some countries where we could look at and then kind of plot a pathway to where they wanted to end up playing. Now, and sometimes that journey started at maybe a small club, say, but I mean, we've taken some players to kind of Romania, League 3, which is full time, it's professional, um, competitive league, and a good experience for some players to kind of experience adult football. But the problem is now those clubs are quite small. They're run by a handful of people, and they don't necessarily have the finances to be sort of arranging work permits and visas and things like that. And also there's added rules in different countries where if you're bringing players from outside, there's certain taxes that are applied. So that makes it difficult for players to kind of work out and go to Europe. There's obviously going to be some players that will find a way with where their talent they've done quite enough to kind of show what they can do and still get invited for the trial because the club feels that they're going to be worth putting the time in and investing in. But yeah, look, it's very difficult now. I think I think if you're it is really important to kind of get adult sort of football experience, make that step from youth football to the adult game. But I think if you've got opportunities, if you're based here in the UK with a UK passport, you know, there needs to be some kind of perseverance. If you're playing at a good level here and you're getting the opportunity to show what you can do, and you're still developing and improving as a player, then you've got to take all those things into consideration. It's not so easy now to just go, right, well, okay, I'm going to go to Romania. I'm going to play 3, go to a team where I've got a chance to get promoted to the second division there. Once I'm in the second division, then I can go to Greece or Cyprus, or I can go to some other countries, and I can end up in Portugal second division, or Germany third division, or something like that. as you plot a course to your development in football. Without an EU passport, you are at a disadvantage there because obviously, again, there's lots of players there already that are vying for that spot that you want to go over there for. So if they can sign someone who is just as talented, but isn't going to take up so much time in terms of trying to get work permits and things like that, sort of, it goes. You know, it's like the small detail matters now. That's one of those details that can go against you. So yeah, it's a difficult thing. But look, that's not to say that players can't go abroad. You know, like I said, you know, if it's about finding the right kind of, not just sort of aiming to just go abroad and hoping for the best. You want to go to places that kind of support your growth and progress, and you know, have a pathway for you to really sort of play men's football or play adult games. So I think it's not necessarily about sort of going abroad. I think in years gone by it was an easier, simpler option. I think now you have to be a little bit more focused and a little bit more calculated in those decisions.
Yeah, no, 100%. You know, one question I wanted to ask you as well. We discussed this before a few times. Is what countries are like the black hole? Like you go there and yeah, you can be there forever. What
Oh
are
yeah,
you know
no go areas.
no go areas?
Mm.
Like you can go there, but
Uh,
you got to be careful what league. So if you get offered, for example, I want to say
yeah,
Sweden. There's certain leagues in
yeah,
Sweden. You go there, your mouths are just become Swedish. You ain't gonna come out of that. It would be hard. It's like there's some countries that
yeah.
you get to, like even I think Cyprus is starting to become like that now. Like, what
Mm.
would you say are the sort of leagues or countries for players who are trying to leave the UK to go over to find a pro contract that are? Would you say like, listen, like, you go there, your
Yeah.
strategy got to be 6 months max. Nothing happens, get out because A, B, C, D will happen.
Yeah. Look, I think there's um, many countries globally where football is only just developing, and there's other countries where football's come on in the last few years has developed quite well. But what you have to look at really is look at your football CV, where you've been. If you're playing here in the UK, say you're in an academy, um, in a good academy, you're developing well. Uh, what you need to be conscious of is when you go in search of adult football, how much the drop off is in the quality in that league compared to where you were and where you may want to play. And again, I think this is not something that's specific to football, but um, I think when you look at look, um, with, I mean, you touched on the Swedish league, and the Scandinavian leagues that are are really good for development in terms of some players that come out of those leagues. I think if you're playing in the top tiers in across sort of Scandinavia, Norway in particular, those are good standards. You can kind of move around from there. You can develop from there. But I've heard of players that are wanting to go and play in like the fifth tier of the Swedish league or the sixth tier of Swedish league, and what they're required to do there is um, there's no accommodation. They have to get their own accommodation. They get a coaching role at a job, or the owner of the club gets them a job somewhere, so they're having to work to get paid because they're not getting paid to play football. And what I used to say to players was, well, let's see if you can make your way that Romania in the third tier,
Mm.
where the club provides accommodation, you're training full time, and you're getting paid. Or it's not massive pay, but it's enough for you to be playing full time and focused on playing football. Now, for some young lads, it was like, no, I don't really want to go to Romania. I'd rather go because the Scandinavia has a better reputation. I'd rather go to Sweden. I used to say there's a big difference between Sweden Division 5 and Romania League 3.
Exactly.
You know, and to be honest with you, you know, we've experienced this in players going on trials to Romania and they can't cope with training every day.
Oh my
They're
God.
You think you can?
Yeah.
Wait.
When you get put at a different level every day, it is a different ball game. But what I used to say to players with going to Romania and things like that, because accommodation's provided and you know meals are provided and things are taken care of, you don't have to move your whole life there. You're going there to play football. You're going there to get experience, develop, and then you can kind of move on to the next stage of your career. I think when you have to move your entire life over to Sweden because you're having to get an apartment under your own sort of lease name and you've got to worry about, you've got to have a job there as well to get you're having to move your whole life there and your kind of focus is not just on football. So I think those type of scenarios can sort of, I don't say trap, that's kind of wrong word, but it can kind of put you in a position where it makes it then hard for you to work up because you're not completely focused on football. And let's be real, again, go back to how popular the game is and how many people are trying to make it in their game. Your focus has to be 100%. And I think, again, this may be coming where the kind of network the players have around them, who they listen to. I have a lot of players that contact me that are speaking to, 7, 8 other agents. And I'm like, look, I don't work like that. Pick one, listen to one voice. As long as you trust that voice, it should be one voice that you listen to, and then we can move forward from there. So, I think, look, there's different levels of football all around the world. I think you have to look at your own potential, what you can achieve. I mean, realistically, if you're not going to make it at a professional level in the UK, or just kind of, you're at that kind of national kind of level, then there is lots of leagues around the world where you can kind of go and earn a good living, play at standard. Again, we've known players to go and do it. They've done it in the Far East and in parts of Europe as well. But it's again, it's about understanding what the player's potential is, and then obviously looking at the level of the game where you're to go, because obviously if the drop off in quality is too much, then it will hinder your progress. Definitely.
You know what? Even you saying that about players as well, having conversation with 5 different, agents at the same time. This lack of integrity from players is a concern. I think for me, that's, we've seen it and I've seen it where players, for me, and players loads of players listen to this. One of the things you guys got to get right is your integrity. Understand? If a man opens a door for you, for me personally, you got to be loyal to that man that opens the door. Simple. But I see players moving crazy, like talking to 3, 4 different agents at the same time. Or when they get through the door, they're like, cool. And then, they go sign with another agent. Like, tell us your experience in terms of that area. And you, Ryan, you know about this too, bro. Like, you seen it happen, man. Like, it's crazy.
Well, like Faheem could not name names, but we had a joint venture with a kid that had potential. Picked him up out of not obscurity, but he was playing for a showcase academy, innit? So what step did you say we put him to? We put him to what step was it being?
6, I think it was. 6, 5. I think it was around that.
Well, I'm not going to name a club, but it's a good club. Good infrastructure. Like basically, if you're a young player, 17 years old, to play there, you got a clubhouse, you got a bar, you got a crowd, a decent crowd. They got your squad list every week. You get food off. You know what I mean? You get a wage. It's a dream. But no, sorry for him. I'm not gonna cut you off.
No, that's cool. That's cool. You're right. I mean, look, look, it's a hyper competitive environment, right? Players are vying for spots at clubs that are, hard to come by. You know, for every, player that speaks to us, there's 10 that are trying to get seen for the same spot at the same club. And Ryan's right. That club that the young lad went to, it created an environment where he would get cheers, he would get boos. It would really expose him to adult football at a young age, and it would give him the tools to kind of really learn from that and really push on. Yeah, it's pretty quick.
You went Anakin Skywalker mode. That's
But
what you did.
yeah, but I think, look, I think what we have to look. Let's be real. Let's be real, right? Um, Ultimately, one of the biggest tests for your kind of integrity, it comes to your money.
Mhm.
And um, people people will do great things to protect their investments, or even crazy things to take other people's investments and make it their own. You know, and we know that this goes on. We've seen it in the industry for a long time. Uh, Being involved in it, we know that players' heads can get turned, whether it's because it's a bigger agency or there's more to be offered uh, to a player by the agent. Um, I think, look, for me, I don't want to compete with uh, players, um, like his control of his integrity when it comes to his money and things like that. What I'm trying to do as an agent is, and look, we've worked together for many years, and we all were always on the same page. We wanted to take the young lads that may not getting the opportunity their talent deserves, and try to push them and shine the light on them a little bit and help them progress. Um, and ultimately, if you look after people properly in this industry, everybody gets paid, right? So you don't have to worry about that stuff. But when
Mm.
that becomes the focus, and look, we live in an age where youngsters' heads are turned by flash cars, by designer labels, by flash restaurants, by flash bars, and all this to be part of that scene, they need to have money and turns their head. So listen, once I see a player's head sort of get turned by that sort of thing, I tend to kind of back away myself anyway. To be honest, I'll allow the four or five agents, whoever compete for the player, to go ahead and battle it out. I'll kind of step away. Um, you know,
But for him, it's funny because the stepping away is like, if you, all right, so I'll put it like this to any young player. If you come across myself, Faheem, or Kishan, and you disrespect the loyalty and we step away from you, you're not going to find guys that are going to advise you like us. And I'm not even tooting my own horn because there's a human element for what we're doing. You know what I'm trying to say? So
Yeah.
that kid that was at that club, his head got turned by a trial abroad.
Mm.
He put his eggs into one basket, went to this trial, never got in, and that was what last season. That club is like kicked on in a different type of way. Where if he was still playing there now, he'd be part of the furniture. He probably would be about 19 or 18, having a full season, and then get ready to say, okay, where can we go next season? But if you're getting your head turned by small little offers like that, and you've got people that are looking at you, setting you up for later on in a
yeah,
better way, I think you've kind of messed up there. And the funny thing is, the kid had called me maybe a month ago and said that he didn't play football since that time,
Cheats.
well,
and he wanted the opportunity. But I told him, you disrespect the loyalty, the integrity. I can't work with people like that in my personal life. So how can I work with people like you when we're trying to build something serious?
Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, look, one of the biggest things for as an agent, I mentioned it at the kind of beginning of, of the show, like, building this network and breaking into this industry is one of the hardest things I've done in sort of profession. So when you do get a good contact at good clubs, whether it's here in the UK or abroad, you want to protect that network as well and that relationship.
Yeah.
When you have players that easy, but they want you to trust them. So if I'm going to a club and saying, look, this player's available, the club's interested, and then suddenly the player disappears, that's my reputation with that club on the line.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
And we, it's so difficult to build those relationships, not because, the scouts or the head of recruitments and the directors of footballs are arrogant or anything like that. It's not that the case. What you got to understand is, Ryan, you'll know yourself, right? As a scout, you probably get bombarded with requests
Mm.
from agents, from players. Oh, have a look at this player. Have a look at that player. And it's really difficult to build that. I don't send just any players to. Yeah, my method is always I have a discussion, understand what they're looking for. I look at the club and what their sort of ethos is in terms of playing football. The players I'm send them, are they going to fit that style? Those are the important things that we go into look. And if I've got a player that ticks all the boxes, and I say, yeah, okay, here you go, we've got a player ticks all the boxes. Have a look at him, and the club goes, yeah, we're interested. And suddenly the player's a no-show, or he doesn't return my calls. He's had his head turned by 6 other agents because there's an agent out there that can get him a trial in, I don't know, in some obscure footballing, just because the agent can earn a quick buck, and he feeds it into this player. Oh no, it's a really good opportunity, and let's be real again. Quite a lot of young people these days will often take an easy option as opposed to going somewhere and working hard for their own development, because everybody's looking to make it quickly because that's the environment we live in now, right? If you can get somewhere in two steps, why are you going to do it in 5? Whereas if you did it the 5 steps, you probably last a little bit longer at the top. But that's just how it is. So yeah, it's very difficult. And like I said, once I sense that a player is talking to a lot of agents, or the player's motivation is money. And there's nothing wrong with being motivated by money. Look, we all have, we go for promotions in our professional lives because we want to earn more, we want to be able to provide for our families and all that kind of stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. But when it becomes a priority, when you're playing sport like football, I think it can be dangerous because it can cloud your judgment when it comes to making key decisions.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, so true. I mean, one of the things I want to touch on before we end shortly is how much is a big decision for a player to understand, or should I say understand, for a player to understand the decision that they take in signing with a big agency compared to a small agency when they're just starting up. What is that process like? Because as you know, there's pros and cons with both sides, and I feel I've seen players go from, for example, 16 years old, killing it conference, gone to a Premier League club, signed with a huge agency because they've had branded players, Harry Kane, whatever, and then they've gone literally after they've gone to this Premier League club, been there for 3 years, and then they've gone back 4 steps and playing League Two now, League One, and to be fair, that was probably the route that it could have gone, but it was just like, it's just the way everything happened. I mean, it was just the focus that they needed in that development, as opposed to signing with under 21s. yes, you can get that kind of development that you needed, but then it was like there's a lot of decisions along the way in the particular player. So,
Mm.
what would you say is very important for players to understand when the pros and cons sign with a small agency versus a big one?
I think, look, like you say, there's pros and cons in all situations, whether it's a big agency or whether it's, a more smaller operation. The idea behind when we set up Ace Agency, the idea behind that was basically we looked at what a modern footballer required and we tried to put everything in one house. Now that doesn't mean that I would deal with all aspects of the football play requirements. We have specialists in each field. So the idea is for us as an agency that we don't want uh, a high quantity of numbers of players signed. We're looking at quality where we can actually give them a service across the board. We've got a round coach in house that has worked with players at big clubs, has fed young or worked with young players and fed them into academies. We've got really, really strong marketing team that can help players with their media management, with their footprint, and make them really marketable in terms of sponsor, boot deals, and things like that. And then obviously there's my role in making you know their footballing stuff is taken care of and everything else, and it's to bring that all together. So in a smaller agency where we wouldn't sign a massive number of players, where we'd be quite selective, we can give a more uh, bespoke service to the player, and we can make sure that their needs are being met. And again, this is something I said earlier in the chat was, essentially, a role hasn't changed. Although there's lots of rule changes and game change that involved, essentially the aim is still there to look after the welfare of the player or the club, whatever you're working for. So in terms of a player, we need to make sure that they have everything they need in order for them to be focused in training every day, in order for them to be focused on a match day, so they can do the fundamental stuff and develop their football and play at the top of what their potential allows to play at. Now, I'm not saying you're not getting that at a big agency, but what you got to have to look at is at a big agency with big network, they're dealing with huge players with massive contracts, and you then do have to look at, well, who's going to get the priority service? Is it someone that's bringing them in 300 quid a month?
Mm.
Or is it someone that's going to be bringing them in 20, 30, 40, 50,000 a month? There's pros and cons in all areas. Look, we have expertise in each of those areas, and we bring those years of experience together to give what I hope will be a best sort of service to a player, best sort of complete service to what a modern footballer needs. But essentially, like I said, what it boils down to, if you strip away all these things, it comes down to being able to build a relationship between a player and an agent, and the agent understands the player needs at every stage of his career, and making sure that those things are in place.
Yeah, 100%. And to wrap it up, what is the importance for players now to understand social media money management and this new age? I don't know. I mean, the other day I heard, obviously it's a different sport. One
Mm.
former NBA player say that Michael Jordan didn't have to deal with the pressures that this generation has on social media. And to be fair,
Mm.
growing up, I can't lie. If you didn't know Michael Jordan was, you was a Flintstone.
Mm.
Honestly, we didn't have social media back then, but we had TV, and he was well enough. But he couldn't go anywhere because he was like that guy. But how
Yeah.
important is it for players, one, to understand how to use their social media effectively for marketing as well, and also the image. Don't get caught doing the dumbness. I'll never forget one player. He came at the same time as Victor Moses, Sean Scannell, those guys at Chris Guy's Academy. He ended up putting a post on Facebook that got him in trouble with both clubs, to be fair. From then, from that point on, I just saw that he was blacklisted. And the fall was crazy. So, how is it important for players to understand to use social media for good use and for stuff that they've got to be wary of not to do?
I think you mentioned Michael Jordan. Look, there's sports personalities that kind of transcend this. The talent is so monumental at that point where they're in the game, and that impact it has on the game sets them apart. Look, we had Maradona in football, Pele, lots of other players in recent history as well that have kind of, even if you're not into them, you know who they are. And it was like you said before, social media. I think now it's really important to understand how social media works, because it's it's like with anything. If you use something more, you're more likely to kind of make mistakes with it as well as getting at using it, you're more likely to kind of every now and then there'll be a slip up. We've gone from players. The only way players could interact with fans was to do an interview with World Soccer or magazine or Match magazine, interview by the press, the written press, or an interview on Match of the Day. Now players are doing interviews for before live games.
Yeah.
Players are doing Q&A sessions and social media sessions with the club's social media activity, as well as their own. So it's really understanding, the kind of message you want to portray, the kind of image you want to put across to yourself as well. And then look, there's lots of examples, not just in football, but across in various industries where well-known people have used social media, and a mistake that they get pulled up on years after the event has cost them. Kevin Hart with the Oscars. Now we know that lots of industries away from sport, they actively check people's social media before employing, right? And football's no different. Clubs are very protective of their image. It's really important that clubs, when you're wearing club gear, if you're in a tracksuit or the kit or anything with the clubs, sort of indicates that you're part of this club, that you portray yourself the correct way, because their image is everything. That's how they put it across to the fans. And it's important to the fans as well, because no fan wants to see their club ridiculed, right? So all of these things, all of these pressures are part of social media to, be interactive with the fans. And now, and again, we've seen a lot of examples of this in recent history, where fans now have the the option to kind of interact back with the players, comments and likes and things like this. And players again have to be prepared to deal with negativity of social media, because we know how negative certain social media platforms can be.
Yeah.
And they have to learn how to deal with that kind of stuff. And, like you said, we can, lots of sports personalities have had their troubles exposed in the written and on the TV. But now, but it happens over time, right?
Mm.
Look at Tiger Woods, all his kind of indiscretions and all his issues that came out didn't come out straight away. He had many years of earning from his sponsors and earning from the sport that he plays, and then suddenly all this news came out in the newspaper about him. What we have to understand now is that news can now come out in
Mm.
you could do something in a restaurant and in 2 hours it'll be on social media
Mm.
because someone filmed it. And we're in an age where now we take pictures of everything, we film everything, um, and it goes straight to social media. The first thing we do is post it on our Insta story, put it on Facebook, put it on our WhatsApp stories and things like that. It's out there in the public domain. So it's really important that again that these players sit down. And I'm not saying that all the agents have to be social media savvy. I'm not particularly, I use social media. I have a good understanding of it. But we have experts in place that ACE that will help you through that kind of minefield, if you want to call it that, of how to really use it properly and how to interact with people, probably how to use it to interact with your fans, how to use it to raise awareness of things you're passionate about,
Mm.
and all of those things. And that's why I say, like with us, it was really important for us to have experts in place that um, we could help these young players or deal with all aspects of what their modern footballer has to deal with.
Yeah. Okay. And just to wrap it up, tell us a bit more in terms of about ASE, your agency, what kind of stuff that you guys do, what you do that's probably anything different from agencies out there. Yeah, just give a bit of a background from anyone
Oh,
probably listening. Your
yeah.
overview, yeah.
I think like I said, for us, it's about having being able to deal with footballers' requirements in its entirety. Um, you know, we don't have to go out uh, externally to get people to come in and help with developing a brand. We in house, like they want to set up a business or a clothing brand, or they've got a business idea. We've got people to sit down and develop that, spend time with them, develop those business ideas, and turn it into something that is profitable for them, or is kind of um, they can develop their kind of digital footprint. How they want to come across, how they want to interact with their fans. That can be done in house. Other development issues we have, development in terms of their playing ability and their fitness and things like that. Again, we've got fantastic um, uh, coach and one of the co-founders of ACE who can do that with players at a very very good level. And then we've got sort of our sort of external business partners. We've got sort of medical groups and things like that that can advise players when players are injured. Again, we don't really want to go outside. We don't want to be waiting on long lists for players to be seen and things like that. We want people for them to be seen very quickly and be given a very bespoke recovery uh, guide on whether their injury needs surgery or whether it can be something done through physiotherapy or exercise, or like we look at the players' requirements, what they need. Every player gets like an assessment as well. Like we can look at um, what players may be more susceptible to certain injuries, and we can put things in place with the medical team. Okay, we need to do this as a preventative measure so that you can continue developing without sort of regularly picking up certain injuries and things like that. So there's lots of things in place for us at ACE where we try and give sort of complete package where players can kind of be stress free and just kind of play football and know that everything else is in good hands with really good people that are experts in their field, really.
Hey, love that, love that. All right, guys, so you heard it here. Faheem has come and give us the
Thank you,
download.
brother.
Thank you so much,
I
bro.
appreciate you guys.
No
Thank you
worries,
so
man.
much.
Thank you, thank you. So, guys, here's Faheem. He's co-founder again as ASE Agency. You can get in touch. You can go to the website at aseagency.co.uk. You can check them out. You inquire, put in the contact form, and probably somebody they can get back. But thanks again for tuning in, and yeah, we'll see you in the next episode. All right, signing out.